That'll work.
Just a tiny little bit?
Yeah.
There you go.
I actually think it's almost too quiet in here. It's very strange. This might be a little
Don't
echoey.
worry, this is my daughter upstairs.
Okay. So, all right, we are back this week. We wrapped up last week talking about the
Right. So today is going to be about the No Fix November.
Oh, shit, that's right.
Before we go there, let's go back to the last podcast a little bit. I was talking to someone who told me, rightly so, that the point is not that we want to help CrossFit, especially we want to help people. And I think that was a very good point. Because we're going to try to get the powerlifting gyms into this, the strongman gyms, all that stuff. But again, this is not about CrossFit HQ or CrossFit even itself. It's just for me, it's all the gyms that are attached to functional fitness that we're going to try to help. Yeah. Owners, coaches. So it's about people, like as usual within StrongFit.
I think it's always interesting because of essentially your name has been StrongFit, which just always sounds CrossFit adjacent. Has kind of, you know what I mean? Has since the beginning, just from a wording standpoint. And then I think
I am within the functional fitness realm.
Exactly.
There's no question.
Within that space, since a lot of your seminars stuff have always kind of been hosted in CrossFit gyms.
Exactly.
It becomes very easy for people to narrow it and be like, oh, so this is just a CrossFit thing.
Because where else would I host them?
And I think if you've been watching this many episodes, I think you know it's not just a CrossFit thing.
No.
And
by the way, it's not like, but by the way, which is funny because it's not like I do CrossFit, which I don't.
No.
So yeah, it's always been strongman, MMA, stuff like that. So, but I did train a lot of the top CrossFitters. Yeah. So there's that as well. But my point had always been people. For me, I wasn't even training CrossFitters. I was training people that happened to be doing CrossFit.
Yeah.
But people don't know that, but actually most of my business were regular people. I took care of the 99%, way more than the 1%.
Yeah.
So so that you know it's not a CrossFit thing, it's a people thing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what we're going to try to do, really. Speaking of that, let's talk about behavior and the No Fix November.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I want to intro this thing. Julian sends me a message into all of us at StrongFit's group. I'm sorry. Well, I'm talking, so it'll be
there. You go. Okay.
So into all of our group,
we're good.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
because he's blocking the.
Yeah. So I get the message. This is the Julian camera. This is the Wolf camera, and that's the camera that nobody watches. Just
exactly.
Me. So, but oh fuck, Julian. So I get this message, and it's in like all of us, like Richard, Dave. So I get this message. It's like, November, it's no carbs, no alcohol, no sugar, no, what else was there?
No stimulants.
No
alcohol, no drugs, no stimulants, no caffeine, no carbs, no sugar. Yeah, that's how we started. I call it Surrender November.
Yeah. So then I look at it, I think I said out loud, I was like, are you fucking serious? And all I responded was like, "You're an absolute psychopath."
I think you're a psychopath. Was your answer? I have the text here.
Yeah. So.
By the way, I never said anybody should do it, especially within StrongFit. I was like, this is Surrender November at the time, so we call it No Fix November because I lost the vote on the name.
I simply presented options instead.
Right. Sure. And I was like, that looks like a good idea. And so we're starting. And so I put it on the group message for StrongFit, and there you go.
Yeah. So
the reactions were intense.
My first thing was just, no, I'm not going to do it. It'll be funny. I can talk about it and not doing it. And then as time went on, I was like, the problem was that I really did not want to do it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, fuck me. It probably means I should do it. And so... Because I knew for sure that doing the thing wouldn't be bad for me. That generally speaking, it would probably be a net positive. The problem I have is I just don't want to do it. And so I sat on it for a while. And then I think it was the other day, I was like, all right, I think I'm in, I'll do it.
For $1 million.
First, well, there's a start, yeah. Winner gets $1 million. But no, it was, I'm doing it. My wife is going to give it a shot. And so it'll be very
You know what I found the funniest? Is we're in October. And people are freaking out.
Yeah.
Right. So literally, like I had people sending messages. Everybody's losing their shit. I'm like, guys, like today is what, the 15th? We're 10 days away from November.
Yeah, you got time.
And I'm not putting a gun to your head. Like I find it so funny. People losing their shit. We're not even in November yet.
I know.
You haven't started. There's a guy. So this is how nervous people are. There's a bunch of people who started already. Yeah. Because they can't wait.
Yeah.
Because he's fucking with their head so badly They can't even wait for November to start.
Yeah.
I was like, what is wrong with you? There's a dude who's counting the hours. By the way, what is the one you thought people would bitch the most about?
I would think, well, for sure, probably just carbs, I think.
Because that's been the one. I was expecting caffeine. At least not 50-50, but 60-40.
I actually think people are more intensely dependent upon caffeine. I think that just those people, but I think carbs are so tied into every moment of people who train's brain, like the way they think.
And carbs have been justified.
Yeah.
So speaking of that,
there's people that will who have never gone without carbs.
Yep.
Who will just fight with you about the idea, and it's like, well, I'm not making you either.
Well, I had a guy telling me that fats and not carbs were causing diabetes.
Well, that makes pretty much not sense.
Do you remember that vegetarian or vegan fucking documentary?
The newer one?
I don't know, it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the guy, he had actually a doctor saying that carbs did not make you fat, fat did.
Yeah.
And they had that doctor going, oh, how dare you on a, it's like, this is my problem with the medical world. Like, we talk about science, like a religion now, where we're refusing to accept that there are legitimate issues in today's world with many aspects of science, not science as an idea, as a concept, but the application of it.
I think
capitalism based on objectives has turned the medical science into something that is not far off drug dealing.
Yeah. No, I agree. And
who created the fucking pyramid in the US with the carbs and everything? They were not trainers. Yeah. No, but it kind of pisses me off because we get bashed left and right. We are the people that movies make fun of, where you're just going to bang your clients and everything. And doctors are always like those people that have, in their heart, the hippocamp stuff, and you shall do no harm. Did you respect that fucking thing when you start to sell those painkiller pills? Like Kyla's dad had shot of morphine and OxyContin on top of it. Is that how you respect that oath? By doing that shit? Like the carb stuff, like the number of doctors out there, like the Ritalin for ADHD. So I've discovered here in Holland, basically, anytime you fail to, I should stop to say basically all the time. Anytime you fail to learn anything, you go to a doctor, and I think their prescription rate of Ritalin, so they're going to test you for ADHD, and I think the success rate of that test is 100%.
It's like 100%.
You're walking out with Ritalin on some other shit, some other form of amphetamines, to the point where some doctors here, not all doctors, but some have said that shit only works on people with ADHD. I'm like, amphetamines only work with...
Well, and it's like, just maybe, they only kind of help people with ADHD. But I'm telling you, they work if you don't have ADHD. Like, come on.
But by the way, what do they help people do? They help people do the shit they don't want to do.
Dial in and focus and do the shit you don't want to do.
Yeah, that you hate doing. Yeah, that's
your house,
what... Okay.
Sweep the floor.
Do your emails.
Study all night. Yep.
Study all night. Do your emails. That's what they're for.
Yeah.
How is that not drug dealing? The opioid crisis. How come no doctors have been charged or looked? Yeah. We have not looked at the medical profession. How come we can blast trainers all day long where we're the one doing the actual work, right? Yeah. It's like a hospital where doctors are gods, but the nurses do most of the work. All right, so we are the one who see people 4 times a week and everything. And doctors are those people on top who get to criticize us and just look down upon us, where it's not any better at the top. Like, don't get me wrong, there's bad coaches, but there certainly are bad doctors. And the culture of the medical world needs to evolve, because right now capitalism has a hook on it in a bad way.
Well, and so many people, because of that hook that capitalism has in it, so many people then try to dogmatize, is that a word?
Yeah. It is now
to the medical side of it. So what happens, I think, so often is like, well, medicine says this, science says this, the doctors say this. It's like, yeah, but I'm telling you that I did this thing, and then, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, I have to wait until the man upstairs tells me that it's okay.
Or, you're lying.
Yeah.
The earth is flat.
Yeah.
That's literally some of the conversation I'm having, but I'm like, but I've seen it work. I have the people, I have 100. No, you're lying. You're lying, or you don't know. I don't know which one is worse. Yeah. You just don't know. You're a trainer. What do you know? That's literally the argumentation. So that, by the way, when I say capitalism, you have to understand what I mean by that. I don't mean capitalism based on constraints. I mean based on objective.
Yeah.
A capitalist society that has constraints like money is necessary. To keep the gym open, for example, right? A free market is necessary. Because a free market allows you to be not necessarily successful, but to have good fortune.
Yeah, and it allows value to build on value.
But it's not, I don't think a free market allows the most successful to be successful. I don't think that's what it is. No. It allows good fortune to happen.
Yeah.
The iPhone, all that shit, right? So, but when it becomes an objective, making money, then you start gaming the system, then you sacrifice people. When free market becomes the objective, then you start to deregulate everything. And of course, bad people come in, game the system, and now we have Flint. No, I mean Michigan. So that's a little bit what I mean by capitalism. To me, it always goes back to constraints versus objectives.
So not as an operating system, but as an extreme.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When it turns into objective, that's when you see the bad shit happen. Right. So going back to No Fix November, why? Why did I choose those specific ones, and why challenging people in that one? So my idea was, I was looking at, again, a lot of my work is obviously sympathetic versus parasympathetic, and then there's an idea that struck me as interesting. So for example, I had a guy saying, if I don't have carbs, I can't recover from workouts, and I'll have shitty workouts. Well, okay, so two parts. I'll have shitty workouts. Because that's what a lot of people are going to say out there. You can't generate intensity in your workouts without an outside source.
That seems to be a problem.
Who's training, you or the carbs? Now, replace carbs with any other substance. I can't train without alcohol. Pre-workout, right? Exactly. I can't train with amphetamines, which is, by the way, guys, so you know, to all the guys out there that are making fun of the CrossFit athletes that get busted and they say tainted supplements. Now, I'm not saying some are not lying, but tainted supplements is a reality. If you have ever taken Jack's 3D, guess what? You took meth. If you have ever used Celtec, and people are like, I don't know what that is, right? It was the #1 creatine seller for 10 years, right? Before he became new and improved. You were on steroids at the time. I think there's a lot of hypocrites out there. They're gonna claim they don't know what they took, but guess what? That stuff that makes you train twice as hard, there's a reason why it works. And no, it's not natural shit.
And it's very interesting though, like if you replace, like I said, the carbs with anything else, it's weird. Any
other substance. Coffee, pre-workout, any other, you would be like, dude, you have a problem. I can't train without 2 beers. I can't, like you'll be like, dude, come on. But if it's carbs, then that's totally normal because that's what fuels your workout. I'm like, what if you end up in a fight or, you know what I mean? Like the argument to me makes no sense. Again, who's training, you or the carbs? Right, and you can't recover. Recovery is not done in the sympathetic nervous system. It's done in the parasympathetic. That's, by the way, so if you need the carbs to recover, then what is protein for? You know what I mean? Like the entire argumentation, I'm like, oh, protein is to build muscle. But I'm like, isn't that building muscle part of recovery?
What that is?
I thought it was part of recovery. So which one is it? So you need, I mean, like, so it goes on and on and on and on like this. Like I find the reactions of people fascinating when it comes to carbs. I know where it comes from, by the way, but so it was all the stuff that started to get me to look at. You want to grab the stuff?
Yeah, I have it right here.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
You're getting better. I like it.
Well, there's only 2 things.
Okay, so and then I looked. So the point of let me explain exactly what the point is of No Fix November. It's behavior. That's it, right? It is not. So one guy is saying, "Well, look better in the mirror." That's not what this is for.
No.
Looking better in the mirror is an objective. If you do No Fix November to lose weight, you'll fail. You'll lose your shit. That is not what this is for. This is for behavior. Why am I saying that? Because you are a slave to external factors. And welcome to Western lifestyle, and I think that started honestly with Industrial Revolution. Like we can even go into that one, but we are slave to external factors. Like, so all the stimulants that are listed, right? Alcohol, carbs, sugar, caffeine, Monster energy drink, basically all the stimulants. If you look, create a sympathetic reaction.
Yeah.
Right? That's what all those do. But they do it in a passive way. It's a substance that you ingest and puts you into a sympathetic state. But you did not create that state.
No.
You were passively walking into it. Right. So that means that, first of all, the sympathetic is very reactive, is only reactive. You cannot just get angry at things until you put yourself into a situation that makes you angry. The sympathetic nervous system is reactive. That's old school. That's part of the brain, like reptilian brain and all that stuff. It's reactive to the world. So when you ingest those substances, you are making yourself extremely reactive to the world, right? But you are, in a way, downgrading your nervous system.
You become so much more just a product of your environment then at that point.
Exactly,
right? Yeah.
Right. But then who are you?
Yeah.
Right, and so I believe the fight mode is the proper fight mode is a combination of sympathetic and parasympathetic, so top of the arch, right? So it lays toward the sympathetic, but you need that, ventral vagus nerve, you need that part that is you to also deal with the world. So all those things to me are taking us so far toward the sympathetic, we are just product of the environment. But that causes a problem. Then who are you? So whenever you take carbs away or caffeine away, people are always say, I'm so tired. Mm-hmm. Okay, but is it tired? By the way, I love when people say that because that's usually the same people that will criticize me for not measuring.
Yeah. So tell me how on a
do you measure
scale of measurable tiredness. Yeah.
And did you test it?
Yeah.
What did you use a DEXA scan for that one? What test did you use in order to measure your tiredness?
Yeah. Is this with an Apple Watch? Because
by the way, so
you just going off REM numbers?
Define tired.
Yeah.
Let's start with that. So it's like, well, I don't feel energized. Okay, but then we're going to go at this. What if it's not that you're tired? What if is that you're not reactive to your environment? Because I took what was driving you toward that in a passive way.
Yeah.
Because again, it's not you creating an action toward the environment. It's something that you ingest that just puts you into that state of reactiveness. Right. So if I take that away, then what are you left with? You're not reactive. Then you have to be active. It has to be you interacting with your environment. And since you never do it during the day, you're like,
And then sleep is shit.
But suddenly you're like this, you're like, well, I can't do anything. Exactly. You can't do anything, not because you're tired. That feeling of, I don't know. It's because you cannot create that fight mode yourself. You have been relying passively on a substance that you ingested in order to put you in a state that allows you to do the shit you hate to do. So instead of, when I take that away, you're facing the stuff that you hate doing and you go, I don't feel like doing it. You never did.
Yeah.
You never did. And that's the problem. Because then being in that state of reactiveness allow you not to deal with your shit.
Yeah. And so then all you're doing is just kind of like limping forward on crutches, but you're not really actually getting anywhere. Really.
Right.
Because you don't have the tools to do it on your own.
And by the way, since you're very reactive to your environment, that means you take input from everywhere. Mm-hmm. This is hot, the wind, that keeps you busy.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're so reactive, that keeps you, one of the side when you're on the sympathetic side, you get acute senses. Mm-hmm. Right? It's normal because that bush over there just start moving.
Yep.
Your senses become alive. You're like, whoa!
You smell everything. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So by triggering the sympathetic state, that's what you get. You become more aware of your surroundings. All right, but to do what? And that's what I see with everybody. Mm-hmm. It's like once I take that away, it's not that you're tired, it's that you're less, your acuteness of your senses goes down a little bit because suddenly it's not being generated from the inside, it's you who has to come and go meet the world. And that tiredness is you not being able to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you start moving, you're fine. The problem is when you stop moving, you're like, you cannot generate momentum.
I think also when people go carbs before action or sugar before or anything before action, what happens is that becomes the standard operating procedure. And you just get really used to that being the way it is. So it's like, I have to do a thing. So what do I need to do before I do this? In order to be able to,
exactly.
And so that's what we run into all the time in the beginning with the nutrition stuff, right? Very often it was, we would talk about, well, you want to eat for what's coming next. That started to get confusing because so often people would be like, then that's when we started getting hip to the real behavior thing.
Yes.
Because then we get people coming in saying, okay, so I have a meeting at work that could go good or it could go bad. And so do I need to have fats or some carbs or both?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, no, you just need to go to the meeting.
Yeah,
that's the only
exactly.
thing
And
you
just
really
deal with it.
like,
Yeah.
Like I don't eat because I have to, I don't choose what to eat because I got to tie my shoes in a little bit. Like I just fucking tie my shoes. And so, but you started seeing this.
Yeah. Those weird behavior things.
Putting the cart in front of the horse all the time.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that I think you start to know. That was about, I think, when you started to really see that.
The behavior, I was like, this is very strange. Where like but again, then I started to understand, like they want to have, so in their mind they go, I need the proper fuel for what's going to happen next. First of all, you don't know what's going to happen next, so you can't have the proper fuel. If you're going to go train, obviously the carbs in that sense will trigger the stuff. But what I realized very fast is by doing this all the time, at some point you are not generating the intensity. So we go back to people, let's say, if I don't have carbs, I'm going to have shitty workouts. How come you are not capable of generating intensity in your workout by yourself? Do you not like what you're doing? I mean, and don't get me wrong when I say this, is I want people to be a friend to themselves. Fair, but kind. Mm-hmm. So this is something when we're going to take away the carbs, all that stuff. Again, we're going back to signals. I'm going to get that into a while, but the signals are going to be very clear. But I don't want you to hate yourself. I don't want you to see what you're doing, or in that case, not doing, and turn it into a harsh criticism of yourself. You have to be a friend to yourself, like a best friend to yourself, where you are kind as a voice to yourself, but also fair. Where you have to be able to get to that stage where you look at a situation and ask yourself, do I like this or not? Mm-hmm. Am I capable of doing that or not? Not in a mean way, not in a disparaging way, not in a ranking system way, not in a way based on objectives. In a way based on constraints. Is like, how come I cannot create intensity in the workouts that I'm going to do? Do I like it or not? Like, if you love what you're doing, the way you train and everything, you don't need carbs to go to fight mode. You want to fuck shit up? Like... Right?
Fair.
Right? Like, do you need a drink before you go on a date? Like, if you do, that means you're too nervous. That means we need to work on your anxiety levels. But imagine that you cannot have dinner with your wife or girlfriend without getting drunk or without... Then at some point you'll be like, how come I can't just have a normal conversation with that person without being in an altered state? So all the stuff that I've listed, make no mistake, put you into an altered state. My question is, how come you can't do it? And let's be fair, isn't that what really is freaking you out about the whole thing? The idea of having to spend all day with yourself. Mm-hmm. Not reactive to it, with yourself. You yourself creating your life.
So when I go through, I'm not too worried about the carbs thing from a training standpoint. It doesn't really bother. The only real carbs I get is if I have some beers some afternoons. But it's getting colder out nowadays. That's a little less enticing. So, but for me, it was like so the carbs is really a matter of just not having my cheat meal once a week and not having any beer. And I was like, but then he was like, no alcohol. I'm like, wait, well, fuck. Then what am I going to do if I want to just go out with somebody and talk to people?
Right.
Like, well, fuck.
Can I just talk to people?
And then in my head, I was like, you're a fucking adult, Tyler. What are you talking about at this point?
Right.
But in my head, that one bothered, and the caffeine was another one. Where in my head, I was like, but then when I get up, if I have some work to do, what am
I'm not going to do that.
I'm not going to go make a coffee and sit down and have the coffee and drink it. Till my heart rate picks up, and then I want to do the work.
Exactly, right. So let's talk about this. So, because I started 2 weeks ago or some shit like that. So I switched to decaf. Why? Mm-hmm. Because I like to make coffee. I have my machine and everything. I'm not going to make coffee. I had decaf. But by the way, the first 2 days, I had 12 shots of decaf.
Really?
Yeah, because my body, I love the taste of coffee anyway, but my body is like, it's missing something. So I was like, I crave coffee. But I knew what was happening. I was like, okay, go with it. It's okay. Now I'm back to 2 or 3. But was I tired? Fuck yeah. So that's where I started to understand what tired means. I was exhausted for 4 days. What I thought was tired and exhausted for 4 days, 5 days. And I'm sitting there going like, oh my God, I don't want to train and everything. I was like, oh, come on, man. So I make myself go and I have an awesome training session. I was like, So I guess I wasn't that. I was like, that's okay. But I was. This is not the first time it happens. Like we used to go with Skyline and get 2 drinks after training, right? So that was a reward system, and that was awesome. When we took it away for 4 days, it's like what I thought was wasted tire. Now I'm starting to understand what it was. And so after 5 days of no caffeine, because the carbs I've cut like even before that, I've cut the coffee for 2 weeks now, the caffeine for completely. So so I'm basically on the no fix November in the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks if I take the caffeine away. And again, first 5 days, I'm like, man, like generating the energy myself is hard. And I was like, yeah, no shit, because you never do it.
Yeah.
First thing in the morning is my espresso. So I'm never generating the energy to start my day. I'm getting it passively. And I'm like, huh. And definitely I fell by noon, by the way. And then by day 6, my training sessions, I'll explain why, but suddenly started to get a lot better. We're going to get into this. But suddenly I'm sitting over there. Sorry. I'm sitting over there day 6, and I did absolutely nothing. And suddenly I was like, that I could not do before. I sat there, no stimulus. Like, so no coffee, no food, nothing. I just sat there for 30 minutes and did nothing.
No phone, no TV.
No, but it's more than that.
Yeah.
I did not go into my head and create situations where I'm pissed at somebody or I'm working. I did not look into the future. I did not look into the past. I was just there, in the present with myself. That would be a test positive, by the way. And for 30 minutes, it was the most relaxing, resting phase I've had in I don't know how long. I was not capable of doing that before, where I could just sit there. Again, sitting, not looking at anything in particular, but again, not daydreaming, not falling asleep, because usually before, if I stopped like this, I would just fall asleep. I was just there. And I realized that feeling of being there was actually what the feeling of me being tired was. But what I couldn't do was not look to be reactive.
Yeah.
I took the reactiveness away, and suddenly, what did I find? Me. When I stopped looking around for something to react to, guess what I saw? Me.
Yeah.
And that's when I understood why it matters so much.
When you described that to me earlier, I told you the same. I was like, that sounds terrifying to me.
Exactly.
Because I know exactly what happens. If I just have to sit for 30, I can't do it waiting for anything. 15 minutes for a bus, I'm like, I need my AirPods, I need my phone, I need a trigger. I cannot.
Yes.
And even then, I'll listen to something that's entertaining. And then I will still have to be looking at something. And then, or if you're at home and often you get home, you
need to react.
You have just something, you're like, what do I need to get myself in the middle of? Or I'm going to go do nothing but kind of react around to everything. And but those things, because I think being a little on the ADD side of things, I feel like I'm extra prone to falling into those traps all the time because I just want to do a thing to do it.
But again, like being with yourself, doing nothing, is what is the scariest thing of all. It is. But suddenly, what struck me the most was it was the same feeling. It felt the same. Me doing nothing was exactly the same feeling before as me being tired, except before I couldn't stop looking for things to react to.
Yeah.
When I stopped doing that, I found me, and it was great. But no sound, no nothing, and I just sat there. I was not awake yet, and I just sat until she woke up, and then the stimulus came to me. But before that, I just did nothing. It was I could not have done that before. Yeah. Then I understand how much reaction I was creating through ingesting food and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's when I understood the importance of all this. So now, if we take it, by the way, so let's take it a little bit further. People have to do shit every day they don't want to do. So what do you do when you fall asleep? You start slapping yourself. Basically, you put yourself, you're trying to pump adrenaline into your body.
Splash water on your face.
Yeah, exactly. So it's adrenaline you're trying to pump. But we know that physiologically, for example, like the switch fight to flight is that switch from noradrenaline to adrenaline, for example, right? So it seems to me that when you basically try to wake yourself up and go, come on, or do stuff like that, you are putting yourself in flight. Fight mode is using, for example, for training, lactate as fuel.
Yeah.
It's a diesel stuff because when you fight, you need to be diesel. Like you need to explode sometime, but that's ATP, that's 7 seconds.
Yeah.
You can't generate you can't redline for 30 seconds in a fight. You'll die. If you better finish because otherwise, but again, usually it's a gamble. So when do you take a gamble? When you're in flight. If you're winning and you take your time, you see that in boxing or MMA all the time.
Don't do anything stupid.
They don't do anything stupid. They start stalking the guy, but they don't go berserk.
Yeah.
Berserk is shit. The bear is winning, right? Okay, so then that switch to adrenaline, to those reactions like that, going like it's usually a flight mode.
Yeah.
Like so remember, the fight is sympathetic and parasympathetic, so it requires you to be centered. Flow under pressure. That's the fight mode. So people that go like this and
if you lose control, then it's like the pressure's gotten a hold of you at that point.
You're in flight.
You're not in flow. Yeah.
No, you're not in. So you're not in fight. You're in flight.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, it seems that what those people to do the stuff they don't want to do, because again, the difference between fight and flight is not wanting to be there, is they're putting themselves in flight. So that means that you're using those stimulants all day to put yourself in flight.
Yeah.
So you could see where depression after, but like anxiety, all that stuff would be rampant.
Yeah.
Like if you look at women, most of them have carbs over fat. Like to try to get women on a high fat diet is very hard.
Yeah.
Right? But they're also like, because they're sociological creatures, thank goodness they are, because they're the one raising the kids, they're the one in charge of society. Reactive behavior is necessary because they continuously take the input. They're great at multitasking. That requires input. Guys are just narrow-minded, so you can kind of, push things away. Women are far more open in that sense. They can receive input from everywhere. That's a bit more reactionary. And I see that reaction with carbs a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, like if you're continuously reactive to your environment, and especially if it puts you in flight all the time, but then you'll never have the time to look inward. To look at yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and then you start having in training, you start having these questions when things get challenging, predictions are way off.
Exactly.
All of a sudden it's like, well, you have not had that time. Well, you do not know.
Yep.
And you have not had time yourself. And all you are attaching it to is the things that you can do. And then the fucking wheels completely fall off because you're too dependent on all of that external stuff.
And actually, that's a very good point. Let's talk about that because I realized that my training lately. So let's go over training. I realized that, for example, I love doing the monster dumbbell. If you guys don't know, it's that big ass dumbbell you shoulder and then you press overhead. But before, it was just like an expression of brute strength for me. I would just go into a fight mode, get it, and then just throw it in the air and catch it and whatever. Lately, what I've been doing is actually, as I shoulder it and I go, even with heavy weights like 70 kilos or stuff like that, I did that this morning, starting to look down, look in the middle and look up to see how I could, if looking up or my positioning or whatever would allow me to catch the dumbbell in a more efficient way. So suddenly I was working on coordination.
Yeah.
Coordination, that's the parasympathetic side of things, right? So I was going so sympathetic, I was losing coordination. I was even thinking about working on my technique that way. If I work on technique, it's only light. But then suddenly, I found myself trying to go as heavy as I could while paying attention to coordination.
Yeah.
So I could find a true fight mode, whereas before, it was all adrenaline based. Like I would just go fucking nuts, go here, and then, but again, driving myself to adrenaline to get more weight overhead, is that a fight mode or is that a flight mode? I'm starting to ask myself. And on top of it, but if you never work on technique and you rely on brute strength, then you're going to hit a glass ceiling anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, like not everything is lowest. Like a dumbbell overhead, at some point, you better have technique because that shit gets heavy.
Yeah.
Anytime you're over 150, 160, it gets heavy.
Yeah.
It's a grown human being. Yeah. It's a grown CrossFitter anyway. Maybe not a human being with us, but it's a grown CrossFitter. So there you go. So suddenly I was like, there's an alertness that I'm developing that I did not have before.
Yeah.
Because before I had reactiveness. Now I'm developing alertness. I saw that in other parts of my life when suddenly Yaya comes down and we do math together. The frustration is real. Anybody has a kid? Yeah. So, and in the last 2 weeks, I found myself calm. Like it's not that I felt the frustration like before come up and I managed to get it down because I don't manage at all.
Yeah.
It did not grab. And every time it got there, I was like, I get it. I understand why, because this is frustrating and everything. But it never grabbed onto me. like I did before. I find myself in a stage where frustration, like dealing with assholes on the internet who just try to correct the way I spell words while making mistakes spelling words, all that stuff, which it's a improper grammar and misspelled grammar.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
That's a jam.
Yeah, exactly. I found myself going exactly like that, going like, yeah. Whereas before, like I had arguments with people, it took me 2 days to recover. Like I get rattled by arguments. I do not like to argue on stuff like that. And sometimes, but now they just don't grab anymore. I'm far more, not calmer, just it doesn't grab. Mm-hmm. And so I found my training to actually be better as well, because when I'm there, I don't need to rely on that pump of adrenaline and that just completely fucking insane stuff. I just do work. Yeah. But here, I generate the intensity in the workout. Me. Not an external factor. Me.
Yeah. We had talked about how that kind of gets stuck into this loop, though, right? Where you're depending on the thing to do the thing, and then you can't do the thing, so you just kind of get worse and worse and worse in what you can do until there's a crash. But we had talked earlier about kind of the nervous system aspect behind it, as far as
right.
Like how.
Okay. Let's talk about this.
Yeah. Like as far as like what really is going on though in the body in these cases.
Right. So and that came from a very good question, saying, well, then we shouldn't do the neoprene training. And I was like, that's a very good question.
Which is a valid question.
It's a very good question.
Because you want to get a sympathetic response.
But is that a crutch?
Really good question.
Is that a crutch? And actually, that's the core of the whole issue of No Fix November. That's the whole difference. Is the neoprene is not a crutch in the sense of it's making the world hostile for you. So, but how does it do it? It's doing it through the peripheral nervous system. Mm-hmm. And that's the correct way to do it. So let's imagine I don't know why I have to cough, but sorry. Let's imagine the system as a cell. Mm-hmm. A cell has the inside, right? It has a membrane of the cell, and then it has the outside. And the game is between the two. Right, so a cell reacts properly as to the world is hostile, comes to it. It knows that through the membrane, and then the inside of the cell will start to generate the proper response in order to deal with whatever hostile situation is. But it does that through the knowing what's happening through the membrane.
Yes.
That's actually the active inference principle. When Carl Friston explained that, the membrane is a Bayesian blanket. Yeah. The Bayesian inference model acts through the membrane. We know that it's the back and forth between the two. All right, so that means that the proper way to gauge hostility from the world is through that membrane, which is the skin, where 80% of the sympathetic nervous system lives. Mm-hmm. So by creating an hostility onto the skin through the neoprene, I create the proper stimulus for you to create a sympathetic response. Then you create the sympathetic response, not the neoprene. That's the difference. You are being active in creating the proper fight mode.
Yeah.
Right. That happens to the peripheral nervous system with all the physiological stuff. What is very interesting is that those things, those stimulants, the thing that you ingest, if you look, is you are creating a sympathetic response through the enteric nervous system, not through the peripheral nervous system. And I think that's the key of the stuff.
Because then you're attaching digestion,
on
gut
top of
bacteria, food, everything into this, like all of this thing now that is not, really shouldn't be based on those things.
And why?
And you're just like, it's like you're making a total misconnection.
Exactly. You know? And why? Because first of all, that means that using the cell, you're creating the sympathetic reaction from inside the cell instead of dealing with one coming from outside the cell. Because again, the membrane is the one that decides. Yeah. So that's first of all.
And thinking out loud, what's interesting is your body will take it from your peripheral nervous system. It's going to go, there is a problem that now we have to solve, and it is out there.
Exactly.
The problem is when it's something that you're ingesting, the issue is there's a problem that needs to be solved from a escalation of the nervous system standpoint, except it's fucking you.
Exactly. So is the system developed? The sympathetic system is not developed for that.
No.
That's not the point, especially with exercise or stuff like that. Right?
No.
Okay, so, but then that we can even push that a little bit further. Why do I believe it's so bad to do it through the enteric nervous system? I believe the enteric nervous system is the seat of behavior, right? If we look at what the gut flora, all that stuff, it's linked to all behavioral changes. For example, we know that the gut flora, modification of the gut flora is shown in all depressed patients. They like two very specific type of bacteria. Yeah. We've seen that rats that grow in a sterile environment that don't have gut flora are very asocial in their behavior. You give them bacteroids of human beings, they turn into social creatures. There's, didn't we do a podcast on that? We did a podcast on that. Yeah. So there's a very important link with enteric nervous system and behavior. So imagine if behavior is the seat, the enteric nervous system is the seat of behavior. By ingesting those things, you would direct that seed of behavior toward a sympathetic response. So that means that your entire behavior would be geared toward frustration, anger, that will lead to anxiety. You could see how those substances would change your behavior toward something that is on the sympathetic side.
Yeah.
And so that would change literally. If you change how you behave at some point, you change in a way who you are, because you change the way you interact with the world.
Yeah.
That eventually will change who you are.
Yeah.
Because it will change the way people react to you. So instead of having an outside source coming into the membrane and then the inside, you're going the other way. You're changing the inside, that changes the way the outside turns with it. So you could see how trying to create a sympathetic reaction through the enteric nervous system that is the seat of behavior could be tremendously harmful versus doing it through the peripheral nervous system, which is technically is the one responsible for creating the sympathetic response.
And what's interesting though is how many people, when we talk about this, how it's behavior, right?
Yeah.
This fucking thing. Okay, it's still working. I don't know, I get the new update and now I have a fucking screensaver.
Yes, all the time.
And it never ever shut off before. Yeah. But is when you start getting those things jumbled up in there, that's what's funny is the issue is the sympathetic response or the craving for external source sympathetic response, because there is really not a lot of crossover. If you ask people what we're doing for this, like even with me, that's how I kind of know I probably need to do it, because they were like, well, what's the thing you don't want to do? Like, what's going to be the hardest? And I'm like, probably tied for the most difficult will be the alcohol, the sugar, the carbs, and the caffeine. You know what I mean?
All of it,
I just have to think. It's like, because they're all the fucking same thing. To me, you know what I mean? That's what I figured out. Is I was like, now I know that deal. I'm walking around, I'm pacing around the house. There's nothing to do. I got an afternoon free. Like, have a beer, have a coffee.
Something.
What are we gonna do?
What if that's what cravings are?
Yeah.
What if cravings are just you wanting to be reactive to the world around you? By the way, there's a foundation for that because we have circadian rhythms. So during the day, we're supposed to be active. So that means the light and everything, even the gut flora sets that, right? So its entire system during the day was like, we need to do shit. So your system knows it needs to do stuff. It can see the light and everything. So peripheral, right? Yeah. It can see the light, it can sense all this. All right, so let's do something. But I got nothing to do. So your nervous system needs a sympathetic reaction. Yeah. So again, instead of you creating it through an environment, what you do, you generate from the inside. But that, I believe that has a tremendous impact on your behavior. And that's what I saw with me in the last 3 weeks, is how much my behavior overall is changing. Which I find fascinating, because I'm starting to think like this, the central nervous system is the prediction-making machine and everything, but the seat of behavior is the enteric nervous system. It produces 95% of the serotonin in the body, produces dopamine, 50% of the dopamine. I believe the enteric nervous system is the seat of behavior. So imagine that all those substances you're consuming, you're ingesting, are dictating what behavior you will have. All right, so how do we know if that's the case? Exactly. No fix November. You take them away and let's see what happens, right? But again, I believe so I know you guys are gonna say I'm tired and everything and I have cravings. I believe the tired is because instead of being reactive, now you have to be alert. And you don't know how to do that because you can't create the energy at first. It might take a week. But I think after a week, you'll start to create your own alertness. Yeah. You'll start to pay attention to stuff. Instead of just being reactive to them, you're gonna have to pay attention. Right, so that's not easy. And then after that, the cravings, that might be because you're just looking for something to react to. Yeah. I've noticed that I had cravings sometimes, like riding my bicycle, of getting pissed. So in my mind, I would start to play images of me getting pissed at somebody on the bicycle, or someone would have said something. That didn't happen, but that allowed me to trigger an anger response. which allows me to be reactive to acute senses.
Yeah.
I see better, and I'm more aware of my surrounding. Yeah, but in that sense, if it's a flight mode, then I'm more aware of my surrounding means I'm less aware of myself. And I believe that's why a lot of people are going to freak out, because less aware of your surrounding means more aware of yourself. And most people will not be comfortable looking at themselves.
Yeah. Here's what I expect. Here's my expectations for my month is I believe fully that the caffeine thing is going to be a bit of a bitch, though I have much less than usual, probably still one a day. It's about all I have. But man, do I really like that one.
Yes.
Because it really, but for me, it really is a matter of I go from not being very alert or awake, and I have it, and then I am awake and I can do my work.
Exactly.
But the question is, like we talked about earlier with the circadian rhythms and the protein, we'll get into that next. But but I know, and it's like, all right, maybe that's not the time for me to not be doing that myself, because I kind of need to figure out how to do that, or else,
I need to be productive. That's going to be the excuse.
And then during the day, often carbs don't really bother me any more than just generally snacking would. So the carb thing isn't a big deal. Just not drinking socially or out of boredom too much. Well, at all, really. But you know what I mean. Doing those things, the alcohol thing will be like, whatever. But the occasional like 1 or 2 night out a month where I feel like shit for 2 days will be gone. So that part kind of look forward to. At my age, that's
we're going to reduce inflammation.
I expect to carry way less water. For me. I also expect that, and part of the reason I chose to do that at this time is we have a lot of new things that we're kind of doing and starting. And so like my productivity has to be kind of top, and I'm like, this is a good time for me to just reset, because I can build my days around what they need to be. And so that's why I'm going with it, and that's kind of what I expect to get out. At the end, what do I expect to get out? I just expect to have sorted out where those kind of things come from, and so that I'm a little less, I can be a little more engaged in the world throughout my day, much like you said.
Yeah, but also like learning as a behavior, right? That's going to be impacted a lot. So suddenly you should be able to learn far better though, because learning is not absorbing. Learning is creating. That's what it is. When you just absorb, like the 1, 2, 3 matrix, people look at it and go, oh, yeah, I get it. No. Put yourself in it, on the stuff. And by creating, like by putting yourself in it and having to actually create the model based on something that you know, that's where knowledge is. That means knowledge is created. Like information is just absorbed. So, but if you're reactive continuously, you're just absorbing information. By being you'll be able to create, and that means you'll be able to learn better. So suddenly reading is better because you can transform whatever you're reading into something that, again, you're making into knowledge. And that's created, not absorbed.
And the big one for me now is sleep also. And we had talked about this. We had some questions about protein consumption during the day that's come along.
Right.
And so I always have to go back to I take the general things, but that circadian rhythm thing I think is pretty undeniable. I think as a fundamental.
All cells on Earth.
I mean.
I don't know how you deny that. All cells on Earth have a 24-hour clock. All cells.
So I'm not saying that has 100% of the influence over your body or anything, but it definitely fucking matters. You know what I mean though? Like
it says, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean.
But then growth hormone is only released at night.
Yeah, but I mean it exists. There's a pull. You can eat protein and not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone's getting through their day eating how they're eating, I guess. But I mean that I think you probably were designed in a way with which you need to be up a little bit during the day to be able to come down at night. And that fundamental just little curve. Let's start with that. Just lean with that.
And by the way, I'd say that's a very good point, because let's say I have protein during the day, right? So puts me. Digestion kicks up, puts me in parasympathetic mode.
And let's say you don't fuck it up. You have just protein and
just protein, that's
not
all.
Protein and carbs.
Just protein and vegetables. So what happens, I'm in a parasympathetic state, suddenly I go against the circadian rhythm. I'm usually a bit sluggish, I'm less energetic, right? All right, so but your body knows that it needs to be in sympathetic during the day. So what would be, it needs more alertness, but it needs more reactiveness as well, because now you basically shut off the reactiveness. That's why you can sleep at night when you're in parasympathetics, like you're not reactive anymore. You're just all ready to go into freeze mode and fall asleep. So I have the protein and I put myself into that mode, which is more like less then the body's like, but that is not the proper time to do it. I need because you just trigger a parasympathetic reaction through the enteric nervous system, your cells are going to be like, let's trigger a sympathetic reaction because we need to balance the fact that you put us into that sluggish mode.
Yeah.
What's the best way to do it? Back to stimulants.
Yeah.
So whether it's coffee or it's carbs or it's alcohol or well, I'm not, because you see that with the carnivore diet or like all those people, I say I don't do carbs. Yeah, but you have whiskey. Right? Well, but there's no sugar in it. But it's still a sympathetic trigger though. You have caffeine even without sugar. So when people say I don't have carbs, it's true. But they still create a sympathetic fixes all day, but not them through ingesting something. So, but if you have protein all day and you don't have any of those fixes, most likely you'll be sluggish all day, not sleep well at night, and just crash within a week. Because that's the problem is in that state that you're creating by having protein, you will put yourself into a sluggish state where you cannot create the necessary energy. So that's another fix you could find.
I think we've also talked, maybe we haven't on here, so I want to bring it up, is also people have said like, well, if I want to have some protein, maybe I have time to take a nap in the afternoon. And that's a thought that I always thought maybe when we were starting. I was like, well, yeah, it adds up, right? It seems, but the issue is, just like you said, if you're going to have that, you're going to get pulled down. Your body's going to demand more of you. It's going to be a bit of an issue. Also, you need this certain amount of parasympathetic state
at
to
night.
handle everything else at night. And then so you've already kind of burnt that up. You
won't sleep well at night.
You won't sleep well anyways. And then the next day, guess what? You're even more tired.
Yes. And more sluggish. And now what? And now you're going down. So I think in that sense, a protein will become the opposite fix, but still a fix because you're going to create a feeling of on the parasympathetic side through ingestion instead of socialization, instead of learning, instead of all that stuff, coordination, all that stuff that is done through the peripheral. You're trying to create that through the enteric nervous system. So I believe we're just trying to, we are slave to the wrong part of the nervous system. We're trying to create it through the enteric nervous system. The problem is that being the seat of behavior, we are creating massive issues. Instead of doing it from us like this. So food is an issue in that sense because it's plentiful. We can have it any type of food at any moment. It's creating a massive issue because it's changing behavior profoundly. And I think that's what the problem is. And then there's one way to figure it out is that take the fixes away. So normally a lot of people are on nutrition, so they know the difference between having protein during the day or not. Now let's take the fixes away on the sympathetic so that you can discover how much it affects your behavior. Let's see who you are December 1st. And then after that, go back on carbs and caffeine and let's see if your behavior changes.
I like it. So is this a challenge? You haven't even challenged, you haven't called anyone out of it and said you did it and... You're going to do it.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it right now. I'm on it for I'm on it for all the months of October. I'll be on it for the months of November. And I seriously doubt I'll go back to where I was. So what I'll do is once in a while I'll go out and have a drink or shit like that. But I like who I am way too much right now to go back to carbs and stuff like that. By the way, I'm 105 kilos. I'm leaner right now and I'm training harder, so I've not lost weight. Well, I've lost, half a kilo? But my waist is a lot smaller. And by the way, there's an entire thing about the stomach not being as swollen as before. And the difference only difference for me from last month is 2 slices of bread a day and the caffeine. So I believe like the stomach swelling and everything, that's a sympathetic reaction. I can't remember the name, I forgot to look it up, but there's a sympathetic innervation right here that toward the stomach, and I'm starting to wonder if that's not a sign of sympathetic response. So like almost like a sign of flight, the stomach, pushing and all that stuff.
So let's give them one last outline of the rules.
Right. So no stimulants. That means no carbs. So let's talk about that.
How about this first off as we go through this list? If we don't list it, it doesn't mean you can just do it.
No stimulants. Right. So
including
no passive.
Cocaine, crystal meth, caffeine, pre-workout.
So no drugs, no pre-workout, no caffeine, no sugar, right? No stimulants, and then no carbs. So when we say no carbs, what do we mean? If you have oat milk, right, you're gonna have a few grams of carbs. That's okay. If you have carrots, that's okay. I've never seen anybody trigger a sympathetic reaction on salad. So we're good. Greens are okay, veggies, even carrots. You just can't have sweet potatoes. You can't have rice. You can't have starches, right? None of the typical carbs. Incidental carbs here and there are fine, right? But you don't go and get like, actual sugar or actual carbs or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right, so no stimulants. Right, but so because those are passive, they go through the enteric nervous system. All stimulants that come through the peripheral nervous system are welcomed, and you should have them. What does that mean? That means sex, because going to sexual orgasm is actually a sympathetic switch. That means the neoprene, all forms of training, all that stuff, like scaring the shit out of yourself, bungee jumping. They're all good because they all go through the peripheral nervous system. Just don't use a substance to get you there.
Yeah. Well, shots fired, guys.
All I'm saying is I'm doing it, and the response is what I've been looking for. Not through a diet. What I've been looking for in myself for a very long time.
Yeah.
That capacity to see myself sit and do nothing, and very importantly, that capacity to not have things in my life grab me and pull me down and take fucking hours or a day or two to recover from. I am tired of having the outside world grabbing me when I don't want to. And I felt like I almost had no control over that.
Yeah.
This gave me control over it. Now I can see it and go like, all right, it happened, but it's not me. I get it.
Do we want to talk to them about the Julian's Corner videos stuff?
No, for now, because I need a better setup first.
Okay.
Let's do that on next
Gotcha. Perfect. We won't announce that yet.
No, not yet.
So,
because we have so much work this month too.
Yeah.
Like I'll see.
Okay.
Because when we're in Barcelona, we'll do so much more. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have training videos. We'll set up the gym so we can have the cameras,
Yeah.
so we can film our training sessions. I'm excited because we'll be able to do a shitload of digital content out there. That'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be nice.
That'll be a lot of fun.
If anyone knows any interns in Barcelona, hit us up.
For media stuff, we'll need interns in Barcelona, no question.
So, well, that's got us about wrapped up for today.
Yeah.
I think we got strongfit.com, strongfitequipment.com, or .eu, julianscorner.com for all things Julian. We've got youtube.com/strongfit. Subscribe to the podcast. If you want to get notified when the podcast comes out, click the little bell button. Otherwise, it doesn't tell you. God, everything else.
StrongFit1.
StrongFit1 on Instagram. Tyler Effinstone, UK32, Rare Barracuda. Woo! It's the IG lineup. StrongFit community on Facebook. That's
StrongFit community on Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah. So get on board. He's been talking about it now for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks about how great it is. You need to be in there if you're watching.
Yeah. So. And by the way, that is the only place where we talk.
Yeah.
I don't go on Facebook, only in the StrongFit community. So there you go. Yep.
Perfect. All right. We'll talk to you guys next week.